The aloe, a genus of succulent plant native to South Africa, is the motif that Athol Fugard has chosen for his latest play, A Lesson from Aloes, which opened last month in Johannesburg.
Small, glaucous leaves, erect or incurved. Tuberculate-based soft prickles on both surfaces.
The Afrikaner Piet Bezuidenhout and his English-speaking wife Gladys, inhabitants of a dilapidated suburb of Port Elizabeth,
No, that's not it.
await the arrival of a friend and his family. Marius Veyers plays Pitt. Gladys is played by Sheila Holliday. Pitt passes the time classifying his collection of aloes.
I'm awake.
Well, my dear, we have a stranger in our midst. Aloe Anonymous. Because that's what it is until I know its name.
For Fugard, the most important characteristic of the aloe is its ability to survive the most adverse conditions, even the harshest drought. He sees the will to survive as a necessary quality in present-day South Africa. Here in Johannesburg, 700 miles from his native Port Elizabeth, and 4 weeks before the opening of the play, Fugard prepares for the first day of rehearsals. In recent years, he has directed the original performances of all his major plays, which include Bosman and Lena, Sizwe Banzi is Dead, and The Island. He regards this work with the actors as an integral part of the creation of the play. For A Lesson from Aloes, he agreed to allow Ross Devenish, a longtime friend and collaborator, to attend rehearsals with a camera crew, giving a privileged insight into the way in which this world-renowned dramatist conveys the themes and undercurrents of the play to his actors.
Now, I think the sense, and I'm sure you'll agree with me as we understand the play more, is that the sense we have got to convey to our audience is a sense of, God, I'm going to run out of, well, our whole vocabulary will evolve for us as the weeks unfold. But let me choose to start with an initial sense of unease. These two people are waiting when this play starts. And they are not waiting innocently. Without too much waste of time, we have got to feed out just a sense of unease. And what they are waiting for seems so bloody simple. Friends are coming to supper. But then as our, you know, and it should be easy, it's a simple enough thing to wait for, but these two are not waiting easily.
You're quite certain they're bringing the children?
Yes, I very definitely made it an invitation to the whole family. Oh, it's high time we saw our godson again. Children grow fast at his age, and little Lucille should be quite a young lady by now.
How many of them are there altogether?
But Steve and Mavis, 3 girls, and little Peter.
Pitt and Gladys's unease stems mainly from Gladys's highly nervous state. She has been trying, unsuccessfully, to recover from a mental breakdown brought on by a night raid from the security police, or SB, in which they read and took away her personal diaries. These events are not Fugard's imaginings. Here, as with much of his previous work, he's drawing on the experiences of people he knows in events that actually took place. For Gladys, the memory of the SB's visit is impossible to eradicate.
I should have thought about it before.
That's right. You led them in, and then stood there, next to that doorway. I can't remember much about you after that. I was still trying to get into my dressing gown. Then the one in charge saw them on the table, asked you what they were. You told him. He apologized to me nicely and sat down and started to read them, page by page. I couldn't believe it was happening. Did I ever get my dressing gown on?
Please.
That's an important question, Peter. Did I ever get my dressing gown on?
No.
So I just stood there. What did I look like?
For God's sake, Gladys, what do you want?
An answer to a simple question. What did I look
You
like?
had just woken up, you were sleepy, you didn't know what was going on at first.
Me?
won't visit us again, Gladys.
What makes you so sure of that?
Because there's nothing to be found here, and they know it. They're not fools. Please believe me. Where's my Bible?
What are you going to do with that?
Listen to me now. On this book, on my mother's grave.
The real pit in my life was searched by the SB at a certain period. And so that's an absolutely authentic detail and element in the story. But I must say that in terms of just the textures that I've used as a writer and the understanding I have of that moment and of its assault on the privacy of people actually comes from my own personal experience when we had one of our visits from the SB at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and 4 of them trooped in and went through the house. And my wife is a poet, and one of them sat down and was in fact the first person to read Sheila's poetry. My happiest experiences with actors, to use I think a little image that has passed between us already, it's almost as if they come into a rehearsal room without a soul, soulless, and are terrified of that fact, and then set about trying to find the soul of the particular character that they are going to act in order to fill an aching void inside themselves, absolutely aching void, and that they will go to any lengths in order to find that soul.
That's what they were really hoping for when they sat down with my diaries. Phil!
I don't know what to say.
Thank God. Because if you were to tell me once more that they won't come again, to start with, I don't believe you, but even if I did, that once was enough. You seem to have a lot of difficulty understanding that, and it's so simple. It only needs to happen to a woman once for her to lose all trust she ever had in anything or anybody. They violated me, Peter. I might just have, well, stayed in bed and lifted up my nightdress and given them each a turn. I've shocked you. Good. Then maybe now you understand.
I've got a feeling that our scene is all right. That is not I don't feel that as a writer I've got any major hassles in terms of what we're dealing with there. But coming out of my homework last night, Sheila, one of the things I think Peter has been doing every minute of the time that he's with Gladys since she's come back from the institution, and I know this from fairly personal experience that is the way it operates, is watching her very carefully, because if there is anything you can do to prevent it happening a second time, you will do it. And you ended up more frightened of her and of this potential inside her than of anything you've ever encountered in your life. And watching her, being ready to try and placate her, to relax her, is something that you just never stop doing. It's also something you mustn't let her know that you're doing. You've got to keep that very secret, because people in Gladys's condition pick it up very quickly and resent it and hate it.
They won't visit us again, Gladys.
What makes you so sure of that?
Because there's nothing to be found here, and they know it. They're not fools. Please believe me. Where's my Bible?
What are you going to do with that?
Listen to me now. On this book, on my mother's grave.
Shut up! Just say what you want to.
The search that night had nothing to do with you personally. They were looking for God knows what. Banned literature, political secrets that didn't exist.
Instead, they found my diaries, and they did take them away, and they haven't given them back.
I'm still trying. That's why I've kept the receipt.
You what?
Kept the receipt.
Get it! Where's the receipt, Peter? What's written on it?
Gladys Bassett's diaries, then Stratham's signature, the date and our address.
Tear it up. Small pieces. There. I've cancelled those years. I'm going to forget I ever lived them. They weren't just laundry lists, you know.
Relax for a moment. A couple of thoughts came to me. I've been going along with saying reliving of the experience. Now, that could well be true, but what I would like to suggest that reliving the experience doesn't frighten Gladys. It arouses violence in her. What I've just been seeing, Sheila, was a frightened woman, whereas actually we're in, I think, this is our first exposure of that violent, destructive impulse in her that is revealed finally at the end, and which she in fact confesses to, I want to destroy.
They were looking for God knows what. Banned literature, political secrets that didn't exist.
And instead they found my diaries and they did take them away and they haven't given them back.
I'm still trying, and that's why I've kept the receipt.
You what?
Kept the receipt.
Get it. Where is the receipt, Peter? What's written on it?
Gladys Besaid, no diaries, things.
The most filthy thing you've ever seen. That piece of paper. Yeah, just as. Yes. It's abhorrent. It's vile.
Gladys Besaid, no diaries. Then Stradham's signature, the date, and our address.
Tear it up. Small pieces. There, I've cancelled those years. I'm going to forget I ever lived them. They weren't just laundry lists, you know. They were very intimate and personal things in those diaries. Things a woman only talks about to herself.
What's my problem? I've got several problems. My first problem is, I think we're moving very glibly. We're moving very glibly. This is it's coming to me, it's reaching me as an argument between two startlingly articulate people. And for that matter, very sophisticated people too. And again, in terms of a specific Sheila, somehow the toilet you were going through at that table looked to me like you and not Gladys.
Yes, I hadn't thought.
You know,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
No, I know it was our first stab. We'd never had that in
what she's
before.
going to do, yeah. Fine.
You chaps talk to me for a bit. Come on. I mean, maybe I'm doing too
I
much.
think you're absolutely right about, from my point of view anyway, not being an ordinary person. It's still too much of myself coming through.
Yes, that's true.
Far too much. And also too much on the same level. I think there have to be so many switches.
Absolutely
within the
right.
thing.
Absolutely
You know,
right,
to me
Sheila.
it's sort of the same.
That's correct. That's correct.
So that's something I'll have to work out.
One understands that this woman and what she's been through is, she's just taken on vulgarity, the way she's taken on violence.
Yes, I think after he's torn up the paper, I'm going to start on a completely new tack. I'll cancel those years.
Yes, that was a nice moment, Sheila. You sat down and there was a seeming tranquility and serenity. And then it lasts for 2 bloody sentences because she says they weren't just laundry lists, you know. Yeah, that's right. Now, that was very nice, Sheila. Really valued, a real discovery to be retained. It's like using it, it's the way a piano tuner goes to work, or a musician with a tuning fork. I find that happens with me as a writer, is that when I start to write a play, or I'm coping with my first statement of a character as a writer, I walk around like a cripple. I feel the way an actor looks when you have to stand on your legs the first time. I feel awkward, and then the accident happens. It comes at one line, which I just know is right out of his mouth, and that is like having a tuning fork. And he gives me absolute pitch in terms of that character. And whenever I'm in doubt about my character, I look at that line again, and I get its rhythm. I see the way it's structured out, why it fits his mouth so well. And I think the same thing must obviously operate for an actor, is that you're just saying now in terms of a moment that having said, tear it up, small pieces.
Come to terms with it.
I've cancelled those years.
She hasn't.
I know, but I mean, there you catch, that's absolutely accurate in terms of our Gladys.
Yes.
And it's a tuning fork for you.
Yes. Yes, I think I'm
startling.
clear now how I'm going to do this. How I'm going to begin.
Cup of coffee.
Having explored the outline of the first act, Fugard now begins to deal with a new element in the play. The belated appearance of Steve Daniels, another victim of the SB, the Special Branch, who in South African government terminology is classified coloured. Steve is played by Paul Jacobs.
Howard, Steve, this calls for a toast.
Yeah, just as long as I don't have to make a speech.
I can remember an occasion when that did not present a problem.
Huh? When was that?
Pitt and Steve have been politically active together, but for Steve this has led to enforced isolation under a banning order.
Come on.
When Steve broke his order by going to a party held by his political friends, the SB was tipped off and he was arrested.
What did you expect, Pete? That I would come out of jail, go home quietly and sit out the rest of my banning order? And when that expires and then slap on the next one, go on sitting there waiting for charity from the comrades to feed my family? That's a hell of a contribution to the struggle. Oh, I know a cause needs martyrs, Pete. I don't want to be one.
Steve's imprisonment has left him deeply embittered, and he's decided to leave the country permanently. He even wonders if Pitt might be the police informer who caused his arrest.
I think I understand.
Do you? And even if you didn't, what does it matter? The only struggle left for me here is with my children's empty stomachs. Where's the wine? I don't owe this place a damn thing anymore. And let me tell you something, Pitt. If you ever end up in their hands, you'll feel the same. You'll also get out.
You're arguing with yourself, Steve. I haven't accused you of anything.
That's big of you. But just remember, if you ever want to, it's easier for you.
I know that.
If I had a white skin, I'd also find lots of reasons for not leaving this country.
There's got to be a progressive build up to that little climax, which is in fact, listen, if I had a white skin, I'd also find plenty of reasons for not staying in this country. There is a sense of betrayal. We've explored this before, we've discussed it, and you agree. There's a sense of betrayal, in a sense, on Steve's side in leaving the country. And when you met that man on the street and you finally had to say, I'm leaving, Pitt, I'm leaving for good. There was just something in his, his eyes that so confirmed your sense of betrayal and of desertion. It's an act of desertion, is what you are accusing yourself of. You are accusing yourself of an act of desertion. You ostensibly make it sound like he's the one that's accusing you of it. You're in a sense saying, well, what the hell do you expect me to do with my life, huh? What do you expect me to do with my life?
Oh, I know a cause needs martyrs, Pete. I don't want to be one.
You're also doing it, Steve.
Are
Don't put words in my mouth.
Are they the wrong ones?
They're not mine.
Okay, but then let's hear yours.
I think...
Let's hear yours. Hit him a little bit with that one.
Okay.
Because he's not saying anything.
Okay then. But let's hear yours.
That's that. There, that was a nice there. There was something there. That's it.
I think I understand.
Do you? And even if you don't, it doesn't matter.
And that's ugly enough as well. Do you? Even if you did, it doesn't matter.
I think I'm getting it now.
Yes, no, that's, yeah, no. I've got no problems on my side with you, Paul. Once you're talking about white skins in the way that Steve has got to, you're into an ugly thing. You're actually confronting white people with the fact that their system has created an enormous bitterness, almost mutilated a man's soul in a sense. And I think that Paul was possibly reluctant to reveal that, to state that. Yes, what's really sort of involved here, in a way, is white men, you don't know the bloody facts. It's all right for you, Pete, to sit here in Xanadu, in your nice little house. You put in a brown skin one day, man, and see what happens. You know, that's the sort of corruption that's taken place in Steve Daniels as a result of all that, as a result of the assault that's been made on his life. Because it is a corruption of a man who was most probably, you know, a lot more charitable, tolerant, understanding prior to those experiences. Okay, just pick it up again at some point, and that's right. What does it matter?
And when that expires and they slap the next one on, go on sitting there waiting for charity from the comrades to feed my family?
I've been watching Paul very carefully because I knew before I started that Paul had had only one experience in theatre before, and that was at an amateur level in any case, that Paul was the first person to tell me this, so I'm not telling you anything that he hasn't told me, that he came into my life without any of the sort of technical equipment that an actor needs. And I've been watching Paul very carefully to understand this and to understand for myself how I can be of use to him. With you first, Marius. Pitt's little credo at the end of his long speech about Steve and his relationship with Steve. You know that little statement he makes about what he believes. You know that at the moment? Would you just read it to me?
An evil system isn't a natural disaster. There's nothing you can do to stop a drought, but bad laws and social injustice are man-made and can be unmade by men. It's as simple as that. That's not a political theory. It's a plain fact. We can make this a better world to live in.
Now, just those words on paper, and knowing what we now know about Piet Bezuidenhout and why he says them and what he means, would you agree with him?
With Piet? I'd love to. I'd like to. But whether it's possible, I don't know. But I would like to go on believing.
Okay. Beautiful. Do you know why I asked you to read that and why I then asked you that question? I think I've neglected to use a very important word. And it's time, because I want to win your soul. We'll get bit right if I win your soul. And what I sort of realized actually last night and then again this morning when I woke up is that for all the other terrible things that are happening in this play and the other terrible things we try to deal with, there's another bloody important thing, and that's an act of celebration. I'm celebrating the one thing on the face of it that seems impossible at this particular moment in the history of our country, I'm celebrating the Afrikaner, Marius. That goodness, that decency. I think we would, by and large, find that the four of us have got a common denominator in terms of a sense of basic decencies. And I think we, without getting too involved in specifics, I think we would also more or less point accusatory things at the same indecencies in our country. I think there's a broad common denominator between the four of us there. I make that point because I think the play points an accusatory finger at certain indecencies. I don't think we have to worry about that. The play does that for us. The play does that for us. What we have got to look after are personal statements. Absolutely individual, specific, personal statements. Personal dilemmas, personal pains. A slightly more general note coming out of that, Sheila, directed at you. For you, not directed at you, for you. There's almost another interpretation to a line that has always in a way interested you, which is that line, black skins and politics don't make the only victims. God makes a few himself.
For me, that is the most pertinent line in the play. For me.
Yes. But God makes a few as well.
Yes.
A note for you, Paul. Maybe it's a note for all of us, actually, in a sense, is to live a bit more dangerously. There are some hard and bitter realities in Steve's life. Realities that you most probably don't want in yours, and rightly so. But they are in his, and you've got to take those on.
Tell me one thing we've achieved that makes it worthwhile messing up my children's lives the way I have mine. We've only seen it get worse. It's going to go on getting worse. I know why now. We were like a bunch of bloody Boy Scouts men, Pete. Playing at politics. Those Boer boys, yeah, they play the game rough. It's going to mean men who don't care about the rules to sort them out. That was never us. My turn for a toast now. Your grass all right, Gladys? Always had a feeling you didn't care much for our politics. Now's your chance. What do they call it? A lost cause.
Okay. Go back again. Paul, you're striking a note. I'll tell you what came over to me there. It was gentle and warm and sad and melancholy. It's not that. Actually, you are saying, I have got no faith left. I have got no faith left. And possibly no manhood either. I mean, you make a confession to having lost faith, and you also get involved in an assault, and the assault is on the sort of, is in a sense almost an assault on Piet's faith, or on the shared faith that the two of you once had in what you do. I want a more destructive, just take that bitterness further, and I also want a greater sense of a destructive thing inside Steve, a destructive thing. You're trying to smash the bloody faith that the two of you shared. You've lost your share of it, but his is still intact, and you're going to try and bugger his up as well. Because as long as he's got it, he's a living accusation. Supple up, get loose, that's right. Play into it.
You know, we've only seen things get worse, and it's going to go on getting worse. And do you know why? I know why now. We were like a bunch of bloody Boy Scouts playing in politics. Well, those Boer boys, they play the game real rough, Pete. It's going to need men. They don't care about the rules to sort them out. And that was never us.
I'll leave the wine.
My turn for a toast. Your glass all right, Gladys? Always had a feeling you never cared much for our politics. Here's your chance. What do they call it? Lost cause.
Okay. Relax. I just want to think about something. It's the first time Paul's acted with white actors. And Paul, out of a deference to the situation, being the polite man he is, might be blocking, confronting these two white people with the ugliness that, you know, has sort of ravaged Steve's life. He might just be blocking a very ruthless, ugly statement there. I do know that without exploring certain areas that are very painful sometimes, it's impossible to find the truth. I would ask you to, because I'm going to try and help you, and I would ask you to sort of go along with this in me, okay? Have you got a favorite amongst your daughters?
Yeah.
Have you? Which one is it?
The eldest, Celine.
Celine. Close your eyes. I want you, Marius, and Sheila to just help me. Paul has got a daughter called Celine. Let's give Paul, help me find them, Celine is a colored woman, young woman. I want to give Paul as many images as we can find of the possible degradations that could lie in store for her if this world wasn't cleaned up. I could see Celine, if things happened the wrong way, Paul, I could see her scrubbing a white madam's floor. Can you join me in this?
She would be known and called regularly mate. If she doesn't do her work well, no matter how hard she tries.
Think of anything? Mate. Hot knot. Good chance of a rape.
Oh, yes, and a slapper.
Yeah.
She won't really get any food. I mean, they'll give her a piece of bread, and she'll have to eat it outside, in the yard.
That's all you bloody people think of. Mr. Dry Prater. That's good enough for us. Then when we try to retaliate, and when we try to tell you people just how bloody stinking...
Tell me something that I don't know. Tell me something I don't...
What you don't know, Athol, is that I, Paul Jacobs, Steve, has as much right, has as much...
Tell me something I don't know.
What you don't know is that your bloody fucking white skin stinks.
I can tell you a lot about black skins that stink, don't wash often enough.
Oh yeah, because they don't wash, but not because they hide behind some sort of white facade, because they are not allowed to grow into that which will allow them to...
Tell me something I don't know.
Well, you know them all, but you don't want to know them, and you don't want to show the world that you know them. Well, yeah, you know them all right.
Okay, sit down, Paul. We'll go again on what we've just done. I think the party's over. Just let's give Paul a chance to think of our little bouquet to Celine, and then let's take it on. Get those. Try and hang on to a little feeling that you might have found there, and let's go into it once more.
I lost more than just my manners inside there, Pete. I did a lot of thinking while I was there, maybe too much. But you know what it all boiled down to? One thing. One question. Why was I really inside there? Oh, I don't mean that party at Betty's and the SB catching me having a drink and singing freedom songs on the sly with the comrades. No. I was really in a bloody mess before they walked in that night. Why? Tell me one thing we've achieved that makes it worthwhile messing up my bloody children's life the way I have mine. We've only seen it get worse. And it's going to go on getting worse. Do you know why? Oh, yes. I found out why. We were like a bunch of bloody Boy Scouts playing at politics. And those Boer boys play roughneck.
In some ways, I think pain, mental pain, particularly mental pain, the torments of the mind sort of take people further than any other energy in their lives, any other experience. I wish it wasn't. I just live with it. It's there. It's a reality. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And then very specifically for actors of obviously in a play like this, A Lesson from Aloes. That's really our territory. Now, our first responsibility this morning is to try and sort out this very nice idea that we had yesterday about Alfred Lord Tennyson and the slave's dream. Now, we're going to have to explore that. I've started to realize how important that opening drive beat moment in Act 2 is, and began to realize, I suppose it's been coming slowly, that what I've done as a writer, what I did as a writer and first time round, was not strong enough. And working with the two actors yesterday, I suddenly had a sense that there was something else. And I don't know what made me ask Paul, do you know a poem? Paul said, yes, I do know a poem. And he suddenly started to recite a poem, word perfect, that goes back to my childhood as well. It was one of my favorites, and he'd learnt it as a schoolboy. And Marius saw this happening, and Marius pounced in on the moment, and Marius was down there on his knees next to Paul while Paul recited this, in a sense, very relevant poem. Relevant in the sense of its sort of images and its emotional content to the play, which is Tennyson's The Slave's Dream. We're going to try and break the ice by playing a game. So your delivery of those first lines that you try to remember must be strong, so that Pitt can pick up something. Beside the ungathered rice he lay, his sickle in his hand. His breast was bare, his matted hair was buried in the sand.
Beside the ungathered rice he lay, his sickle in his hand. His breast was bare, his matted hair was buried in the sand.
Again, in the shadows
of sleep he saw his native land.
His breast was bare, his matted hair was buried in the sand. And Paul, hand yourself over to those closed eyes. Let him help you feed that poem, build it up, discover its bloody splendor again in your mind. And there he is. And there's Pitt, looking at you. You understand what I'm getting at? Okay? An idea like that is, I think I've said it to you before, is actually incredibly fragile initially. If you drop it, it's broken. And actually you can't put the pieces together and try another way with it. It's got to happen right the first time.
Wide through the landscape of his dreams, the lordly Niger flowed. Beneath the palm trees on the plain, once more a king he strode, and heard
the tinkling caravans descend the mountain road.
Although Paul made some headway, his difficulties with the role of Steve continued. As the opening night loomed larger, it became apparent that drastic action was needed if an adequate performance of the play was to be presented to the public. Fugard agonized over the problem for several days, and eventually decided that the only possible solution was to play the role himself, at least for the early days of the run. The imminence of the opening, only 2 days away, imposed a crushing strain on the writer, director, and now actor.
I'm not just talking about the SB walking in. I'm not just talking about Betty's party and the SB walking in. Am I going wrong, Vanessa? I don't mean that party at Betty's and the SB walking in and finding me catching me having a drink and singing freedom songs with the comrades. My life was in a bloody mess, already in a bloody mess before they walked in. You ready?
And then at furious speed...
A tear burst from the sleeper's lid and fell into the sand.
And then at furious speed he rode along the Niger's
bank.
His bridle reins with golden chains and with the martial clank. At each leap he could feel his scabbard of steel smiting his stallion's flank. Before him, like a blood-red flag, the bright flamingos flew. From morn till night he followed their flight, o'er plains where the tamarin flew.
don't want to leave countries, Pete. This is my home. I was born here. But that won't give me a chance to live. They'll do the same to my children.
Is it okay?
I think that's going very well. What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, that looks okay.
That's him. Okay. Right, now match the other side of it. Oh, I'm just terrified of it. I mean, as you saw yourself to do the rehearsal this lunchtime, I drank half a bottle of wine. The difficulty I have in finding a coloured actor is just a terrible comment on how grossly self-indulgent theatre in this country has been in terms of the white minority up to this point. I think I've also mentioned that it's easy enough to find a reasonable black actor, but for some reason this sort of the coloured community sort of hovering in a sort of uncertain identity between being white and being black. I don't know. Just seems very, very difficult.
The Market Theatre, Johannesburg. Since its opening 2 years ago, it has insisted on admitting all races, a precondition with Fugard for the performance of any of his plays.
Excuse me quoting myself. Countdown to a descent into hell.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've got two ideas. The one's a very sweet idea. Not sleeping, it sounded a bit, and it didn't make it any easier. 7 names, 7 faces. Each one of them a friend with his heart in the right place. But which one? Then one night it started to go audio in my car. It's her name. I couldn't get the right face. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't get it right.
Beginners on, please.
Yeah, okay. Stand by, Sheila.
Is it the standby?
All right, darling.
Yeah, okay.
See you.
I'll see you at interval and
Yes.
join you on the stage in the second half.
Yes. Oh, God. Marius?
The table's a bit low, too.
Come on, 60 seconds, Marius. You've got to push me on because I can't see in the dark.
I've cancelled those years. I'm going to forget I ever lived them. They weren't just laundry lists, you know. There were very intimate and personal things in those diaries. Things a woman only talks about to herself. Even then, it took a lot of courage and trust to do that. I know I didn't have much of either, but I was learning. You were such a persuasive teacher, Peter. Trust Gladys, trust yourself, trust life. There's nothing left of that. Must I tell you what I've been trying to do with this all day? Hide it. It's been behind the wardrobe, under the mattress. Can you think of anywhere really safe, where nobody, including yourself, could find it? There isn't, is there? Must I tell you what I really like to do with this? Make you eat it and turn it into shit. Then maybe everybody would leave it alone. Yes, you heard me correctly. Shit. I've learned how to use my dirty words, and it's just as well. For there is no other adequate vocabulary for this country. Maybe I should do that, in case they came again. A whole page of filthy language, because that's what they were really hoping to see when they sat down with my diaries. Filth!
I don't know what to say.
Thank God! Because if you were to tell me once more that they won't come again, to start with, I don't believe you, but even if I did that once was enough. You seem to have a lot of difficulty understanding that, Peter. And it's so simple. It only has to happen to a woman once for her to lose all trust she ever had in anything or anybody. They violated me, Peter. Oh, Peter. It's all gone wrong, hasn't it? And he was so looking forward to this reunion with you, Stephen.
Sorry, Gladys.
You see, the others have been avoiding us as if we had the plague, but we know why. Not that that helps very much. They all think he's a police informer. Did you know that? They all think he's the one who told them you were going to be at the party. What about you, Stephen?
Gladys, enough's been said.
I think he does as well, Peter. Or at least has doubts.
Gladys is getting
That's why
chilly.
Mavis didn't come, isn't it? I'm embarrassing you, Stephen. There's no need to be. It's really so much better to have these things out in the
Gladys.
open. I'm sure you've been thinking about it, watching him all night, trying to decide.
Please, Gladys!
No! Haven't you heard enough today? Oh, are the lies going to protect this time? Him? Your beautiful friendship? Can't you see it's rotten with doubt? Don't leave us in suspense, Stephen. What have you decided? Take a good look at him. Nothing. Still just doubts. Then let me settle them for you. It happens to be the truth. Yes, he is an informer. Peter's the one who told the police you were going to break your banning order and be at the party. I'll swear to it on a Bible if you want me to.
What happened?
Those raids. They took away personal diaries she had been keeping. And she started to get funny. Imagining things. Wouldn't go out because people were spying on her. She even thought I was one of the SB. That's why I couldn't get your trial. They told me not to leave her alone. Anyway, it got worse, and they took her away to Fort England.
Those bastards. I don't want to leave this country, Pete. This is my home. I was born here. But they won't give me a chance to live, and they'll do the same to my children. You were prepared to let me go, believing that you...
Well, Steve, you know why. If you could have believed her, there was no point in denying it.
Yeah. That's it then. I must say I find, even though our critical response has been flattering, a little bit bewildering, because it's almost as if there was a conspiracy on their side not to tell the public in South Africa what the play is about. I mean, they've said good things about it, but no one of them has actually identified the mad dogs of our play, quite simply and very pertinently and without any equivocation in a review. And The mad dogs, I suppose, are epitomised in the very, very first instance by our security police, our special branch who, as Gladys says, violates lie, rape people, violate them. No critic has got around to using the word rape. And I think the play's about rape, one level. If ever there was an occasion to break the sort of twin conspiracies of silence and blindness in this country, I think this is the moment. And theatre, and that living moment in theatre, which is, I think, one of the most potent and powerful of all experiences that can be shared, you know, between artist and spectator, audience, obviously has an incredibly important role at this moment.
With the play now into its run and the tension somewhat abated, Fugard's attention turned once again to the problem of finding an actor to play the part of Steve Daniels. Paul had decided, but after all, he would rather not persevere with the part.
Athol?
Okay, Bill. Watch it.
Yes, definitely. We're on. We're on.
Bill Curry, who'd been involved in another production, was finally prevailed upon to step into the role.
Just feeling terribly guilty. Did I complicate life for you?
Well, inevitably, life's complicated by anything new that comes in.
But so did I make it? Would it have been simpler if I hadn't spoken to you last night?
No, as a matter of fact, you came in a moment of despair. A light in the middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning.
And then, at furious speed, he rode along the Niger's banks. His bridle reins were golden chains, and with a martial clank. At each leap he could feel his scabbard of steel smiting his stallion's flank. Before him, like a blood-red flag, the bright flamingos flew. From morn till night he followed their flight, o'er plains where the tamarind grew, till he saw the roofs of Kaffir huts and the ocean rose to view. The forest with its myriad tongues shouted of liberty, and the blast of the desert cried aloud with a voice so wild and free that he started in his sleep and smiled at their tempestuous glee. He did not feel the driver's whip, nor the burning heat of day, for death had illumined the land of sleep, and his lifeless body lay a worn-out fetter that the soul had broken
and thrown away.
And thrown away. Welcome, Steve.
Hello, you mad Afrikaner.
Imagine a dungeon, a lot of men chained together. Every morning at sunrise the door opens and the man at the end of the queue is unshackled and taken out and executed, and the door is closed. Those left behind read their fate in that. Next morning the door opens again and the next one at the end of the queue goes out and is executed. And Pascal says this defines the human condition, and then goes a little bit further in his paragraph to say the real problem of life, though, is what we do with the 24 hours between the opening and the closing of that door. Do we sit and indulge in self-pity and feel sorry for ourselves and cry? Because nothing's going to defeat that process. Or do we touch the man? Do you touch the man next to you on the shoulder in the dark, ask his name and tell him your own?